Welcome to Cultures with Cadence. Today I have my friend Max,
Hello.
and this episode will be actually two parts. The first part I will be asking Max about his Hungarian history, so his history and his culture. And on the next part, I will be presenting him my culture as a Coast Salish person from BC. So let's just start off, Max, with what is Hungary? Where is it? What's their language?
Well, Hungary is a country in sort of Central Eastern Europe.
Central Eastern.
It's sort of located in between.
Central Eastern.
Yeah. Central Eastern.
Eastern.
So in between countries like Germany, Poland, Romania, and like Croatia,
Okay.
sort of in between all those.
You're like spicy white then. No?
No,
A bit.
no.
Yeah, so like where did they originate from? Like where genetically are they from?
Well, genetically and culturally are sort of two different things. The Hungarian language and culture originates all the way east in the area today we'd think of as sort of being in Siberia.
Okay.
So the homeland of the Hungarians was on the Eurasian steppe, sort of a flat plain that stretches as far east as a country like Mongolia and then west into Europe. And so during sort of during the Middle Ages, the Hungarians made a large migration from their homeland in Siberia to where they're located today in Europe. And along the way, they picked up cultural aspects from surrounding tribes, like Mongols, Turkic people, and Slavs.
Yeah, it sounds like their culture is like in the middle of a bunch of other nations, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
their land is in the middle of a bunch of nations.
Yeah.
Okay. So like that's about like old age Hungary. What about like more modern, like 19th to now? Like what were they doing in the wars, stuff like that?
Well, Hungary, before the start of the World Wars, was in a union with Austria and sort of the surrounding areas called the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the war
Definitely
started...
heard about that.
Pardon?
I definitely heard about that
Yeah.
before.
So when the war started, Austria-Hungary fought on the side of Germany and ended up losing the war in the end. And after the end of the First World War, over 2/3 of the land that was under the control of Hungary was taken away thanks to the Treaty of Versailles. And so this is still something that's really...
Versailles. What does Versailles have to say about Austria-Hungary?
It didn't like it apparently because it doesn't exist today. And yeah. And then the Second World War, they also fought sort of reluctantly on the side of Germany. And after that war, they ended up being occupied by Russia, and they were under one-party communist rule until the 1990s.
The 1990s.
Yeah.
So I've heard about the Hungarian Revolution before, and that was like 1950s.
Yeah, so that was in 1956, and that was
So
the Hungarians trying to get sort of reform in the country. Yeah.
And so like from the sounds of it, they didn't get reform until the 1990s. Can you tell like why they didn't get that?
Well, what ended up happening was after like a few days of the country, after the people sort of taking over the government and trying to leave the Russian Eastern Bloc, Russia ended up sending tanks and troops into Hungary, who put down the revolution and sort of brought the country back into the fold. Yeah. And so
Okay.
most of the Hungarian revolutionaries ended up being imprisoned or fleeing the country.
And so, okay, so they fled the country. And so
Yeah.
do you think that has had a big effect on modern day Hungary, their culture, their social life, their political life?
Well, it's definitely an important and sort of tragic event for Hungary as a country. They still celebrate it today. But it's something they're really proud about because they were one of the few countries who sort of stood up to the Eastern Bloc, to the communist rule.
Yeah.
And actually today there's many Hungarians who live outside of Hungary, who can trace their ancestry back to 1956. So like myself.
Yeah, because your grandpa is from Hungary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we got kind of like a quick run through from basically the Middle Ages, or from Siberia to
the
modern
present
day
day.
Hungary.
Yeah.
Yes, modern day Hungary. And so, what would you say is the main religion of Hungary?
Well,
Because
today,
it's like it's
Yeah.
kind of like in the middle of a bunch of places, and it's close to Eastern Europe, and it's also close to Western Europe too. So I was just wondering if they have influences from both like Islamic type religions but also Christian values and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, the main religion in Hungary is Christianity, and then the second largest would actually be just irreligious, which is around over 10% of the country. But
Really?
of Christianity, the main branch is Catholic, and then after that you have a lot of different smaller denominations. So like Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Protestant, and that's sort of what religion looks like in Hungary.
Okay, so that's kind of like the overall view of Hungarian history. Let's kind of pick at their culture a bit. I just have a few like quick questions. So the first one is just, what is Hungarian food like?
Well, it's good. It uses a lot of paprika and sour cream. Those are sort of the two most popular ingredients in Hungarian food. And so you've got sort of stir fries like chicken paprika, then soups like goulash. Yeah.
What about their desserts?
Well, their desserts, pastries mainly, and they like
all
using
Europeans?
poppy seeds.
Poppy seeds?
Yeah. Poppy seeds.
Sorry.
Do you have a problem with poppy seeds?
A bit. I don't know. In pastry? Okay. Like, I don't like poppy seed lemon loaves or whatever, from Starbucks. Those are kind of gross. I'm sorry.
No, not even the lemon part, just poppy seed.
Just poppy? That's even worse. Sorry. I didn't mean to say that. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't want to disrespect you. And you're sorry.
What was your next quick question?
So, you know how, like, Germany and, like, I guess there's everywhere, like, in Europe especially, there's, like, all these, like, cool stories about, like, different type of Santa Clauses, you know what I mean? Like, you know how, like, I think it's in Germany, they have, like, boots instead of stockings. Do you know what I mean?
Not exactly.
Okay, but I was just interested, is there any, like, cool Hungarian traditions for, like, Christmas, like, New Year's, or, like, any folklore type, like, Santa Claus, anything like that?
Well, I can't speak like specifically for Santa and Christmas, but I know they've got lots of different folk religions in Hungary because they have such a different like culture just from the rest of Europe. And so one tradition I know is that when people get married, the bride is supposed to be kidnapped the night before the wedding, and then the groom has to go save the bride.
That's very Hungarian.
Okay.
That's like, are you gonna do that at your wedding?
I don't know.
You should. I think it'd be funny.
Okay. And then, yeah, there's other sort of weird, quirky things like that. And on their coat of arms even, the cross actually is supposed to look like the tree of life from Hungarian folk religion.
So with that in mind, is there any like traditional Hungarian attire? Like, is there any ceremonial, anything like that?
Well, if you go way back, you probably get some strange horseback armor.
Oh.
With like pointy hats.
That's funny.
And feathers and that kind of stuff.
Sorry.
But no, today they
pointy hats.
Pointy hats.
That's funny.
Today their attire would sort of look similar to the rest of the surrounding countries.
Horse rider, seriously, he has a pointy hat.
Well, the pointy hats were actually very scary.
Sorry.
Anyway. That was like terrifying back in the day, so I wouldn't joke about that.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, more recent Hungarian traditional clothes and dancing would sort of be, similar to the rest of Europe, sort of generally Eastern European looking, and you can see the influences from the original, like, Far Eastern, like, Siberian, and then you can also see influences from, like, Slavic culture, German.
Okay. Yeah. So I just have, like, just a final closing question for you.
Okay.
Where do you think, or where would you like the country to be in the next, like, 10 years or whatever?
Well, I would obviously like it to go in a good direction.
I would hope.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to say. That whole part of Europe is, they're struggling to catch up with the rest of Europe when it comes to economics. And you see today the effects of being under communist rule for over 40 years.
Yeah.
Because Hungary today has very low birth rates. People aren't really having that many kids.
Really?
And most people can't afford sort of like even cars, things like that. Yeah.
Do they have, like, good public transit, would you say? Or is it just, like, overall poor country?
I think
not poor.
Well, it's not poor.
It's not, sorry. I didn't.
It's
sorry.
Like, compared to a lot of countries, it's actually wealthy. Just for European standards, it's definitely behind.
Mm.
And that's something Hungary's aware of. And that's what they've been trying to fix for the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope it goes in a good direction.
Yeah.
But I'm not holding my breath, because I have a feeling that whole like area of Eastern Europe is sort of economically stagnant.
Well, I hope and wish the best for Hungary in their advancing years.
Okay. You say that like they're elderly.
I mean, it sounds like they are. They have a low birth rate.
Yeah, that's true.
Moral of the story is Hungary is just a wealthy old man, right? That makes really good soup and stir fry. And poppy.
Yeah, and poppy seeds.
Pastries. With pointy hats. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a really interesting country just because of, like, all of their history, like, moving from way Eastern to, like, middle, like, Central, Eastern, Western, like, this really weird place, right?
Yeah.
In between so many...
Actually, you don't want to be calling them Eastern European. They don't really take kindly to that.
Really? Well, they're right next to it. They're west of Eastern European. Or
Yeah.
Eastern Europe.
I mean, it's pretty offensive to be calling them Slavs too, which is something a lot of people would make the mistake of.
I mean, okay. Well, anyway, they're special people. And you can kind of see it. Like, I don't know. I think it's just a very interesting place to be. Like, and it shows from their culture to their politics and to even their language.